Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NASL Open. This is day 2 of round of 64 action. So it's round of 64 and round of 32 today. We saw round of 256 and round of 128 yesterday. But all that really matters is the top 8 of this tournament gain a spot in NASL Season 2, and the winner of the tournament gains a spot in the Grand Finals in California of NASL Season 1. So definitely a lot on the line for all of these players. In the bottom left of Typhon Peaks, we have the red Protoss player, Rocker, also known as In Control's brother. So definitely a lot of fans of In Control that are the fans of Rocker as well. So definitely looking to make a name for himself in this tournament. And in the top right, we have the yellow Terran player, Everize, a very good Terran player, way up there on the North American Grand Master League. I think he's like, I want to say he's top 30. I'm not entirely sure though, but definitely a really good Terran player. And we saw about the first half of the last game before my internet decided to take a nap for like 10 seconds, and we got dropped. So that was unfortunate, but it happens. And let me go ahead and explain what happened there. There was a base trade between Rocker and Everize. Apparently Rocker was poking to the natural third on Zelnaga Caverns of Everize and got behind the gold and was able to kill like 40 SCVs, or that's what he said, and he was going Colossus. And while that happened, Everize apparently just charged towards Rocker's base, and then it turned into a base trade, which Everize ended up winning. So I may try to get that replay from them so we can see what ended up happening in that game. But ultimately, Everize did take the win and now finds himself up 1-0 to Rocker in the round of 64. Of course, the winner will advance to the round of 32, which will also be played today. So definitely going to be looking forward to those games. But let's go ahead and talk about this one. The barracks is up, and once again, Everize refusing to get those 2 gases. We saw him do this in the last game, in that he didn't take those 2 gases, let his opponent see that he didn't take those 2 gases, and then right when the probe got shooed away by the Marine, he immediately put down those 2 gases and teched up to Cloaked Banshees. So definitely trying to fool his opponent, but unfortunately it did not work out in the short run because Rocker had some immaculate defense. I think he only lost like 6 probes, and that's if you can get away with losing only 6 probes to 2 Cloaked Banshees, then you're in pretty good shape for the rest of the game. But unfortunately for Rocker, Everize did end up taking that game down. And back in Rocker's base, we have a Cybernetics core about 40% of the way done, continuing to chrono boost those probes. So as standard as can be at this point in the game. Something interesting to note though, no second gas quite yet, so perhaps we'll see some sort of fast expand as SCV does come forward. Runs right through the middle line, and Rocker does get a surround and eliminates that SCV, so a little bit of sloppy play from Everize at this point in the game. Rocker definitely has to be feeling good about knocking out that SCV and will immediately move out to take his expansion, I would imagine. Yes, it does look like that is what he's going to do. 1 gate into expansion. Not a bad decision on this map, especially in these positions. Can lend to really long macro games, so really interested to see what happens here. Of course, this rush distance is incredibly long. Let's just take our way. Let's just take a tour through that middle path. It's a long way, so you can definitely get away with fast expansions, especially if your opponent is putting down a command center. So Everize is putting down that command center and also another barracks, and still with that same strategy, the double gas after his opponent leaves. Actually, let me see if Rocker caught wind of that. Yeah, so the same sort of situation from Everize. Must like this build in Terran versus Protoss. I'm sure it is fairly effective for him, considering he is so high up on that Grand Master ladder. Looks like getting 3 barracks is Everize. A little bit curious, considering he is on 2 gas. I would expect a factory to be going down in the near future, but back in Rocker's base, we have an expansion down at about 70%. Also adding on a gateway, so a very similar build for both players pretty much. I mean, at about this time, Rocker was putting down a robotics facility. Let's see if he does that. He does have the money to do so. And Everize really loves putting that bunker on the low ground ASAP. But the only deviation here is the lack of factory and starport from Everize, electing to go for that heavy barracks play. So really interested to see if he decides to do a timing push on the back of this Stimpaks. And look at this, we have a ninja expansion from Rocker. Honestly, I kind of like this play. I mean, you have a decent amount of gateways to provide some pressure and get out those units for defense. And I don't know. I like it. Hiding that expansion, I think it's a good call. I'm just going to go ahead and say that, and I don't think Everize is going to scout that either, unless he has a crazy game sense. But poking around with this Marine and Marauder, trying to see what is up. Sees the 2-gate expansion, would never expect his Protoss opponent to put down a third, but that is indeed what RockEr is doing, so definitely a little bit risky on RockEr's part. We'll see if it pays off for him, though. Really curious to see what happens, and honestly, if a stim push comes from Everize when the stim completes, I'm not sure RockEr would be able to hold that off. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And also Ghost Academy coming down from Everize. You see a lot of Terran players do this since the last patch. That EMP is so strong, and Ghosts are a little bit easier to get. They cost 200, 100, I believe. Let me make absolute sure. Yes, 200 to 100 they cost. So not too much money comparable to the old gas-heavy Ghost. So a lot of Terran players are incorporating that into their unit composition. Really interested to see how effectively Everize uses those EMPs. Is he getting any upgrades whatsoever? Nope, not quite yet. He does have the gas to do so, but electing to get his combat shields instead and continue producing Marines and Marauders, and also a Ghost out of his barracks. So perhaps we'll see a pretty nice timing push on the back of Stim and a couple Ghosts. And honestly, that can do a lot of damage. If you get a couple money EMPs onto the Protoss sentries, they can't force field, and that's what, 5 sentries, so that's 500 gas down the drain for the Protoss player if you can get some money EMPs down. So RockEr definitely has to be careful, and I love that he's getting out this observer so he can see exactly where his opponent's Ghosts are, so he can know when to spread his units out and when to put down those force fields before he gets EMP'd, of course. Looks like Everize does have 2 Ghosts out, is going to salvage this bunker perhaps, and moving out for a push. And again, this is what I said before, this is like a perfect timing when that third went down. This hasn't quite paid for itself yet, so Everize, or RockEr, could be on his back foot for like the next 2 minutes here, and this push could potentially do a lot of damage. It will all come down to the force fields. Honestly, if I was RockEr here, gosh, I'd almost put down force fields prematurely just to make sure Everize doesn't come forward, and perhaps try to split that army before the Ghosts arrive. I mean, RockEr has perfect vision over this army, so he definitely has that advantage. But as I say that, Everize throws down a scan, so he knows exactly what's up. It's all going to come down to these EMPs, ladies and gentlemen. The Ghosts are coming forward. All of RockEr's units are clumped together, and oh my gosh, all the sentries get EMP. There's no force field, no guardian shield, and no firepower in this army anymore. So a little bit of a blunder by RockEr there, and Everize will charge forward with this Marine Marauder army. RockEr forced to pull most of his probes and his stalkers. Will he have enough to hold this off? Oh, retreating up the ramp, but immediately getting killed by those Marines and Marauders. So this does not look good for RockEr for the time being. He does get an Immortal out, but will that be enough? Looks like Everize targeting down that Robotics Bay, and RockEr pulling out every single one of his probes to try to deal with this. He only has this Immortal and this Stalker, along with a couple Zealots left, but the Immortal gets killed, and plenty of Zealots get morphed in, but will it be enough? Everize kiting away, and keep in mind, every time he stims, his health gets lower and lower, so ultimately killing himself here is Everize, but I gotta say, it is probably worth it. He is ahead 74 to 36 food, and Mouse Thorzane is online, so I just want to make absolute sure they wait for us, because I really want to cast that game. And this game may be over soon because Everize has such a huge advantage here. Some force fields do go down, however, and trap a lot of Marauders and Marines. But look at this, Everize coming forward with a lot more Marines and Marauders, along with a couple Ghosts, also adding on some more barracks and an additional command center. Is he going to try to end the game now? Looks like this Ghost is pretty low on health. That's a little bit surprising. Oh, that's an existing Ghost from before, so that Ghost did survive. Scanning ahead, wants to get another good EMP down. Here we go. Will he get the EMP down? All these units are still closely clumped up together. The Ghost is waiting for these army to come forward, and another huge EMP goes down. Oh my gosh, every single one of those units has lost his shield except one Stalker and one Sentry, and RockEr is definitely looking like he is on his back foot, but keep in mind, he has an expansion up here that's gaining a decent economy, so he can get some units pretty fast right now. And there we go, Everize stemming forward once again, trying to target down each unit at a time, and just has so many units here. RockEr trying to do everything he can to stay in this game, and will it be enough? I'm not so sure. Everize only has 5 Marauders here, so going to try to kite as effectively as possible. Down to 4 Marauders, kiting back, does not want to take any damage from those Zealots. Targets down that Stalker, and keep in mind he has more reinforcements more reinforcements stimming forward. I'm wondering where his entire army is, honestly. I feel like he should just gather up his barracks and then do a death push. And Everize backing up once again. Has to be a little bit confused. How does RockEr have all of this production even though I killed most of his probes? Well, keep in mind, RockEr has this expansion, so definitely getting some additional resources there that Everize does not know about, but I'm still not sure it matters. Everize up ahead 90 to 52, a very tense situation for RockEr. Another engagement happening here, just back and forth. Does snipe a sentry and a medevac comes forward, and 2 mules come down, so to repair the medevacs, I'll just go ahead and say that RockEr, that may actually be a mistake, because RockEr is on 3 bases. Everize could have just wasted it, but will it even matter? Everize continuing to come forward, wondering why RockEr hasn't GG'd yet. Coming up the ramp, and RockEr has quite a few stalkers here. Will it be enough to hold off this army? And this relentless pressure from Everize is just amazing. He does not stop coming with these forces. RockEr once again pulling those probes. He knows that if he can just hold off this army and keep mining from this base up here, he might be okay, but once again, he's down 91 to 50 supply, so it's really hard to call at this point. And Everize may be getting a little cocky here, but I don't know. Again, it's hard to call. 104 to 48 supply, but Everize just keeps sending like 1 unit at a time. I feel like he should just amass a Marine Marauder army and make one final push, and it looks like that may be what we have on our hands right here. It's a lot of Marines and Marauders, ladies and gentlemen, coupled with those medevacs. They probably will not die very fast, and here we go. Everize once again marching forward toward his opponent's base, and RockEr has a few Stalkers, a Zealot, and 3 additional Zealots, but again, no sentries in this army, so I'm really not sure that will be enough. This could be the final push coming down from Everize. RockEr sees everything with his Observer and has to be feeling a little bit sick to his stomach as this force comes forward, and once again, all of these medevacs will be able to heal these Marines and Marauders quite efficiently, and Everize building a command center in his opponent's base, trying to help his economy come forward, but RockEr amassing his probes, trying to hold off for the last time, and I'm not so sure. Everize just has so many units dropping in, 3 more mules, so obviously trying to mine from these minerals once this command center gets up. And Everize does take down that expansion, takes out those Stalkers, and 1 lone Immortal remains, but target fired immediately, and Everize is ahead 124 to 37, coming forward into the base of RockEr. Could this be the end of RockEr's run in the NASL Open? Once again, he is down 1-0, and Everize might take this in advance to the round of 32 with a 2-0 victory. RockEr remaining in the game for as long as possible, does not want to give up. And moving out with some probes. Are y'all expecting me to say something at this point? Because alright, that concludes some round of 64 play. I really don't want to comment on that. And we're just going to jump right into RockEr versus Thorzane. So definitely stay tuned for that. Thorzane coming up in round of 64, guys.